Yeah. Hi, welcome to Life, Love, Insight, Fertility Experiences. I'm here today with one of my favorite people in the whole world, Dara Godfrey. She is such a fabulous, brilliant, wonderful, she's just a love. Anyway, we have so much to talk to you about fertility and nutrition, kind of like nutrition 101.
Exactly.
What you want to know. So, Dara, tell them a little bit about yourself, because
Yeah.
I could go on and on.
Oh, thank you. I am a registered dietitian, and I've been working at a fertility clinic for over 14 years now. Was a fertility patient myself,
Mhm.
and so I know somewhat firsthand how the fertility period can be fraught with a lot of with a lot.
A lot.
And I think a lot of us want to take ownership and feel like we can do something
Mhm.
in this time period that we can feel comfortable with and feel empowered.
I find that that's such a good word, empowered, right? Because people, when they're going through fertility journeys, they feel like they have no control. You're kind of following what the doctor's saying, you're following what people are saying, and your question really is, well, what can I do? Like, can't I do anything? And so nutrition is always something you can do. It really is. And sometimes people actually who are very heavy, they'll lose weight while they're pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And people when they're very thin will gain weight and get to a healthier weight. So it's fascinating to me what goes on with food. And people always have questions. What should I eat? What shouldn't I eat? What should I do? So what's the basics? What do you think people should really know about, like, whether they should drink or have coffee, or just fundamental things, what kind of foods are rich that would be
Mm-hmm.
really healthy for them.
Well, when it comes to nutrition,
Mhm.
I like to focus on the positives. Of course, there's some things that maybe people can be more mindful of, but I think I like to start with the basics of what should people be trying to get in every single day to really lay that foundation, the groundwork to keep your body healthy and creating a healthy environment to have a baby. And I really do think it starts with the basics, and the basics
Uh-huh.
is protein. Protein is the building blocks of your body. It's found in all your cells. And in order for your cells to be doing the work that they need to do, also to create this foundation of growth when you are pregnant, protein is key.
Wow.
And I think I see a lot of, it's important for both men and women, but I see a lot of my female patients not getting enough protein. And I really do think it's important to get it at every single meal. And protein can come from a lot of different places. We often think just meat. And yes,
Right, we think meat, fish, chicken, eggs.
animal products.
Right, tofu maybe.
Yes, tofu, but nuts, seeds, nut butter can come from dairy products. It can come from quinoa. So for a lot of people who are leaning more vegan or vegetarian, quinoa can be a great source of protein, as well as soba noodles. Those are buckwheat noodles.
Uh-huh.
But for me, I really do like to reinforce the importance of good quality protein. So when you're going for meat, if you're able to really trying to look for grass-fed meat, when you're looking for poultry products, to go for pasture-raised poultry or eggs. When you're going for dairy, really trying to actually look for full fat dairy. And I know that can be a little bit controversial for some people who maybe grew up only having fat-free foods. But the fat in the protein in the dairy products are really important for ovulation.
Wow.
And so
I didn't know that, actually.
so it's
I
not something
love
to
learning
be
something
it's
new.
it's not something to be afraid of. Also, I think what's great with dairy, it has a great combination of your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in the right ratio.
Mhm.
So don't be afraid of full fat dairy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just don't like fat free just because I don't like it. I feel like if you're going to eat it, you might as well eat it.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, I grew up with skim milk and everything fat free. So it actually took me a long time to reintroduce. And doing it slowly, I think is great. If you're used to having skim milk or used to having fat free yogurt,
Mhm.
starting with a 1%, building up to 2%, and then
What
slowly building up to whole
what
milk.
about people who think they should be dairy free?
Well, I think it really should be something that's personalized from person to person. I think people don't necessarily need to be afraid of dairy. I think some people don't react well to dairy. My thoughts are it's actually the quality of the dairy.
Mhm.
A lot of the dairy products nowadays are coming from a cow that has A1 proteins in it.
Mhm,
If you get A2, cows coming with A2 proteins, so A2 milk,
mhm,
much easier to digest.
mhm.
And so I think that's one area, or even,
A2.
yeah, A2 milk.
Okay.
We're going also for, a lactose-free milk is another option.
Okay, so not necessarily the nut milks.
So the nut
But
milks aren't going to give you protein. It's interesting. Almonds, really nice source of protein. Almonds
right,
or cashews or walnuts. You can find pistachio milk,
right.
but the actual milk, you're probably only going to get one nut in that cup of milk.
Oh my goodness.
So just keep in mind, if you want to look for a
Yes.
milk that has protein, it could be animal milk, or it could be organic soy milk is going to be a better option. So if you do use almond milk, unsweetened almond milk in a cereal, I would definitely suggest adding in a handful of nuts or seeds or having some eggs on the side to really round out that meal so you're
I
getting
don't
in your
think most
protein.
people know that.
I
I
know.
wish we could survey people right now listening, like if you know that, let us know. Or it's like, I don't think most people know that.
Well, it's the same thing with oats. Oat milk has really become a lot more popular nowadays, and oats themselves have a lot of nutritional value. And one of the other components for health and wellness and fertility is making sure you're getting in fiber.
Okay.
And a great fiber source can come from chia seeds, can come from flax seeds, can come from bran, but it can also come from oats. So, eating steel cut oatmeal is a really nice source of fiber. So you would think, you would deduce that oat milk would be a great source of fiber. To the contrary, it's actually devoid of fiber, and it's a much more processed product that often has fillers of oils and sugar to give it the same mouthfeel that you would have in dairy.
That's funny because people will say to me, because I like almond milk
Me too.
personally, and people will say, oh, you should use oat milk. It tastes much more like real milk.
It does taste super yummy, but it's not going to be as nutritious for you relative to an unsweetened nut milk. Again, with the addition of some protein at that meal to really round out
To round it out. So
Yeah.
protein is really important.
every single meal.
Every meal. Okay.
Every meal.
So if somebody eats peanut butter for breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peanut butter for breakfast. You could have egg salad or tuna salad at lunch.
Uh-huh.
Chicken, fish, grass-fed beef for dinner, or even organic tofu can be enough. And even beans and legumes also are sources of protein.
That's great. I mean, it's really good to know. So, okay, so you're going to have protein at every meal, or try to have protein at every meal. And so then the next thing is you want to try and have some fiber.
Yeah, and especially first thing in the morning. So fiber is great for so many reasons. It helps keep you regular.
Mhm.
It can be great for cholesterol levels.
Okay.
But for me, I think one of the most important things is it's really important for blood sugar control. It can help keep your blood sugars stable. And the morning time when we haven't eaten for, 12 hours, that's what breakfast means, breaking the fast.
Mhm.
And what we eat in the morning sets the tone for how our body feels the rest of the day. So when you eat your protein and you add that fiber in, it can help raise your blood sugar levels in a much slower way
Mhm.
to keep you energized without giving you that crash an hour or two later.
That's really good because when people eat a donut or a bagel or just you grab something quick
Those
before you
quick
run out.
acting carbohydrates, those white breads, the
Yeah.
pastries, the fried foods, that's going to give us that spike of blood sugars with
Right.
the crash. We want to have a very slow, steady rise of blood sugars, and that.
What happens when we have that though, Dara? What happens when we have that spike and then it goes down?
Well, we like the spike because it gives us that big surge and rush of energy. But when we get that crash, we become hangry, hungry anger feeling. And what we physiologically, what our body does is it actually craves more of those carbohydrates because we feel de-energized in a way. So we often have that urge and that feeling to get a surge of energy. So we end up eating something less nutritious to give us that rush again. So we get in that pattern of those blood sugar spikes, blood sugar drops, blood sugar spikes, blood sugar drops. And that's really not great also for your hormone balance, specifically your fertility hormones.
Okay.
So we want to prevent those spikes and drops by eating slower acting carbohydrates.
Now, why would that not be good for your fertility hormones?
It's a much more complicated
They're just like
thing.
a quick.
But in terms of it creates more stress in your body. And when it creates more stress, the hormones that are supposed to be working down here are going to be taken away to help with the stress that's happening from this surge of sugars. Your body doesn't want to have all these floating sugars in your body.
Right. So when we talk about stress and fertility, I know this is a little bit diversion, but when we talk about stress and fertility, the reason why we want to kind of not, avoid stress where we can, especially if it's related to food, is because our blood sugar and our blood flow changes
Mhm.
when we have stress.
Yeah.
And if we can, have a smoother kind of, uninterrupted blood flow, then obviously it's better for our bodies, it's better for our fertility, it's better for our hormones, it's better for our system.
Mhm.
Which leads me to coffee. What about coffee? Decaffeinated versus caffeinated versus tea versus
So we're getting into the
lactose.
nose. I'm so, so usually
Sorry
I
about
do
that.
that, but that's okay. Caffeine, like anything, and I really do try to have a balanced approach when it comes to food. If done properly, it can be something that can be included in your day-to-day. But for me, there are a couple of really important tips to keep in mind that are super important. And number one, not having coffee on an empty stomach. How many of you, raise your hand, have coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, often in lieu of breakfast? That wreaks havoc on your hormones. Not great. Not a great way to start your day. And especially for people who are, wanting to lose a couple of pounds. Having coffee
Why?
is not great.
Why is that so
It
bad?
disrupts the hormone balance, the estrogens, the progesterones.
Interesting.
It's not great. And it's also more complicated than that. But that, it's not a great first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. So number one, you should be eating some breakfast before you have your coffee.
Should you have a glass of water when you first wake up?
And that's my number two.
Okay.
Making sure that the caffeine is not consumed prior to your water. So I do think you wake up, two glasses of water.
2 glasses?
And I mean, at least one, but I would say you want to have 2 glasses in the morning period.
Okay.
And for me, it's a 2-to-1 ratio of water to coffee. So you have a cup of coffee, which this is really a cup. You want to have your 16 ounces of water for every cup of coffee. You can have it where you have 2 sips of water, sip of coffee, and kind of do it that way. But I like having the 2 cups right off the bat. It gets things moving, especially if there's any medications you need to take in the morning.
Right. Or vitamins.
Your vitamins you want to have, most of them after you eat.
Okay.
Your prenatal vitamins, very important.
So really, it's really good to hydrate in the morning.
Hydrate. Right? I think people who hydrate, who get those 2 cups in the morning, are more likely to get in the approximate 8 cups.
You know what I'm thinking?
The rest of the day.
Laughing, right? But I'm thinking, people when they want to weigh themselves, they get up in the morning and they weigh themselves because that's the lowest weight you have all day.
You go to the bathroom, you weigh yourself.
That's what everybody does, right? And everybody who weighs themselves typically does because that's your lowest weight. So what you've done is you've dehydrated overnight.
Yeah.
And so you need to hydrate.
You do need to hydrate.
It makes sense also.
So it's great for hydration, but it's also great so you're not getting caffeine, which has, it's somewhat dehydrating. You don't want to double up on the dehydration. So you're rehydrating, having the coffee. But again, I want food, specifically the protein first before you touch that coffee.
So breakfast should be protein. So like the cereals and fiber. So cereal is okay.
Like a high fiber cereal. I recommend a cereal that has 5 grams of fiber without double the amount of sugar. So a Raisin Bran doesn't meet that criteria because the raisins are really high in sugar.
Right.
So a bran cereal can be great. It can be, my favorite ones are typically Barbara's Puffins, the cinnamon flavor, or the Nature's Path Heritage Flakes. You can do a fiber one or all bran. They're not as yummy. And then adding in fresh fruit.
I'm going to buy that.
Yeah. And if you add your almond milk, remember, handful or 2 of almonds, whole almonds, maybe a hard-boiled egg or 2, maybe a little thing of yogurt on the side. But the protein component is essential paired with that fiber.
Okay. Or if you have peanut butter and a banana.
Peanut butter and banana is great. What I would do is sprinkle some flax seeds on top or eat it with some blackberries. Blackberries are a rich source of fiber as well.
Okay, it's great.
Yeah, so that's great. And you asked also about decaf. Decaf coffee has a little bit of caffeine. For me, my concern more so is that it's a chemical process to make it decaffeinated. So there's a Swiss decaffeinated coffee that is not using the same process as most conventional decaffeinated coffees. So that's an option as well. I also think green tea has a little bit of caffeine in it. You squeeze some lemon, you get more of the antioxidant benefits with a little dose of caffeine. And that's a great option, especially if you are really trying to prime yourself to the best of your ability going into a pregnancy.
So green tea, does that have to be decaffeinated green tea or just regular green tea?
Well, Either or, but the caffeinated is just a lower dose of caffeine. If you have the tea bag, instead of leaving the tea bag in there for, minutes upon minutes, maybe 30 seconds, throw it out.
Okay. And what about other decaffeinated teas?
Right. I think
any decaffeinated tea is good.
I think that's wonderful. I like ginger.
It's a really
mint.
rich decaffeinated tea. I think you have to like develop a taste for it, but dandelion is almost like a coffee.
Yeah. I mean, it is definitely not for everyone.
No,
same thing with fennel. I like fennel tea after a meal. It really helps with digestion. But for those people who don't like that anise or licorice flavor, may not be their thing. That's why I even like having fresh lemon peel and fresh ginger. You can make your own tea. It's great in the wintertime.
Yeah, no, that's fabulous. Okay.
So we spoke about protein.
Right.
Every meal. We spoke about fiber, at least in the morning.
Right.
Number 3, a dietitian has to recommend vegetables.
Yes.
I mean, vegetables give you a great bang for your buck. You get tons of vitamins and minerals, especially ones that are really important for fertility. Folate, very important to get folate going into a pregnancy. You can definitely get fiber in your vegetables. You can get beta carotene. You can get vitamin C. You can get magnesium. I mean, so many vitamins. But, when I think of, most people think of vegetables, they think of leafy greens. And I think it's a great place to start.
Okay.
Great foundation, your spinach, your bok choy, your collard greens, your arugula, your herbs, but think a little bit beyond that. And I think looking at the rainbow, it's so easy to find vegetables, all different colors, your oranges, your reds, your purples. And I do think it's good to go within season.
Yes.
So, in the winter months, those root vegetables are really, there. And then in the summer months, more of the lighter vegetables like the asparaguses. But I do think trying to get half of your plate twice a day consisting of vegetables will give you a great foundation for a lot of those vitamins and minerals that are really important for fertility.
Okay, I like that you said half your plate too. So half your plate is going to be
vegetables,
right?
Yeah.
Which is great for me. I eat a ton of vegetables.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to conceive right now, obviously, but
it's healthy for anyone.
Right. It's healthy for anyone. So I think that's really good to know.
And I also want to reassure people that it doesn't have to be raw. It doesn't have to be steamed, grilled, roasted, baked, sauteed in a stir fry, in a soup form. Great.
Yeah. No, anyway, you eat them, fabulous. Okay. And then you want your carbs.
Yeah, you want to go for fiber is my favorite type of carbohydrate, but alongside fiber carbs, complex carbs, whole grain carbs. I think the average, you probably get tested this, that we see the average American diet is filled with a lot of processed, poor quality carbohydrates. Your sugars, your white flours, your fried foods, your donuts, cookies, cakes, sweets, things of that nature. And we're not going back to basics of whole grains. So, whole wheat bread, going for your quinoa, your beans, your starch, your complex vegetables, your complex carbohydrates coming from things like potatoes.
Right. And it's so important to know that like you might buy one brand of quinoa and not like it, but you could buy another type or another color and like it. So it's an interesting mix, of which ones you buy. Like I happen to like the tricolor quinoa.
Yes.
But once I bought just the plain quinoa because it was all they had. And I didn't like it quite as much. It's a very different flavor.
I have also a nice little tip to add to make quinoa taste or any type of whole grain taste better. When you cook with it, when you make it, prepare it, you add water. A secret ingredient is actually putting in bone broth. And when you put in like chicken stock, bone broth, it adds a lot of flavor. And you're also getting the benefit of collagen when you're getting bone broth, which is great for fertility as well. So you're getting I'm all about trying to maximize and get the most out of what you eat. And so adding a couple of things together can really help give you that lay that foundation to really prepare your body for pregnancy.
And if you want to saute like onions and garlic or something like that with it, is that good? For fertility?
Okay. Yes.
So you can do that.
Onions. I think herbs and spices, onions, shallots are great ways to add flavor. I use a lot of everything bagel seasoning, less about fertility, but just to give you a little oomph to certain dishes. If I'm making a salad and I want to add a little oomph, you're getting the onions in there, you're getting the garlic in there, the poppy seeds, all that yumminess.
Right. So you're getting all these things. So for people who don't really necessarily follow the healthiest diet or really take the time to pay attention to what they're eating, even though they might be, looking to be in great shape, it's a change. So it's important to understand that you can create flavor and taste without a lot of effort
Yes.
on one of these healthier diets for your fertility journey. So how about, what do we leave out? Fish.
Great. So that's for me one of my favorite sources of protein, and I'm happy you mentioned that because there's certain vitamins and minerals that are really key for fertility. I mentioned before folate is really great going into a pregnancy, but omega-3s so important for so many things, for ovulation, for egg quality, for sperm quality and motility, for hormonal balance. And even, for a baby's brain and eye development, for your skin and hair. So a lot of reasons why omega-3s are great. And yes, you can take an omega-3 supplement, but it's really important to get it from food. I really do think, you absorb it best from food. And so fish can be a great source, specifically wild salmon, trout, Arctic char, anchovies, sardines. So if any of those sound exciting to you, I really do highly suggest getting them in a couple times a week.
Okay, that's good to know. But you also hear, I'm sure some of you have heard this as well, you shouldn't eat too much fish because of mercury.
So this is where, it can be somewhat controversial. And I do think that what you do need to be mindful of is the types of fish you go for, because not all fish are created equal. This is a good thing to know. The key thing is the larger the fish, the more concentration of mercury is in the fish. So the ones that you really want to avoid, which a lot of people do eat, swordfish, and specific types of tuna. So sushi grade tuna. For those of you who like sushi, I know I like sushi, really try to avoid sushi tuna because that comes from a very large fish. Whereas canned tuna, getting it from a light tuna, that's going to be coming from a much smaller type of tuna.
A light tuna, not a white tuna.
Light tuna, not white.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's another key thing to note. But there are good things nowadays. You can find, there's a lot of apps that you can download on your phone to look at to see if it's a high mercury fish. And those are the ones that you really want to minimize. And you want to go for the ones that have less mercury. And the good thing is salmon and trout are definitely on the low mercury fish.
Okay.
So that's those are great ones. And I don't want people to be afraid of fish. I think there's so much nutritional benefit.
And if you have a piece of swordfish once in a while, it's fine.
Yeah. I think like anything, my philosophy is balance. And I think sometimes we get so nervous if we do something here and there, but it's really trying to have variety and balance.
And how about shellfish?
Great. I think, especially for any male patients out there who are listening, oysters, actually for women too. Oysters are super duper rich in zinc.
Oh, okay.
Great for egg health, but specifically great for sperm health. So that's a great
we need
thing.
to pay attention to men.
Of course.
50% is men and 50% of the infertility is related to male infertility.
Yeah.
I mean, we're learning so much more. There's so much research about it. I mean, there's a whole segment on it that I'm doing, but it's so important.
And it's similar, it's similar to women, like when in doubt, whole foods. But I do want to reinforce the importance of, zinc. Zinc's really great. And it could be found in a whole slew of shellfish, but it is richest in oysters.
And how about people eat a lot of shrimp or lobster, crab meat?
Great. Those are all really nice sources.
And zinc also is very good for your immune system.
Yes, exactly. When you're not feeling great, we often think of vitamin C, which is important. But for sure, zinc is great for immune health. And that's also important. If you're not feeling great and you have a weakened immune system, that does affect your fertility as well.
Yeah, so take some zinc or eat an oyster.
Yeah. And with that, let's talk a little bit about supplements because, I do think food is so important to have first. But what are supplements? They help supplement your diet. So yes, I think it's important to try your best to get in those vegetables and fruits and whole grains and protein and drink lots of water. But it is great to have that insurance policy. And I'm not one to focusing on the supplements, but it is great to keep in mind a prenatal vitamin is very important to take.
Okay. And what should you take the prenatal vitamin once you get pregnant? Or should you take it when you're trying to conceive?
When you're trying to conceive and when you're pregnant. And so as soon as you have that idea pop off in your, I'm thinking about the future, I think it's important.
Started then. Okay.
Yeah, basically it's a multivitamin that has a couple extra key vitamins and minerals that really can help support a healthy foundation going into a pregnancy and during pregnancy.
And can you take that on an empty stomach or with food?
Not only with food, you should be taking it after you've eaten something.
After you eat.
Most people, the majority of the people that I meet with are taking their prenatals incorrectly. So making sure that you take it after you have, whether it's breakfast or lunch. I think it's really an easy way to remember is leave it next to your toothbrush. Hopefully most people don't forget to brush their teeth at night. So take your vitamins at night and then brush your teeth. And that can be an easier way to remember.
Okay. Okay, very good. That's good. I would never have thought of that.
And I do think, in your prenatal vitamin, if you can find some omega-3s in the form of DHA, great. If you can make sure that there's a little bit of vitamin D. Those are the two little things. If you don't find in your prenatal vitamin, you may want to consider an extra supplement. But
for a different prenatal vitamin.
Or a different prenatal vitamin. There's a lot out there, but that's why it's so important, really, to meet with a healthcare professional if you feel like you want some customized support, because we're all different. We all have different needs. Some people who are on, some people who are vegan or vegetarian. Some people who have thyroid conditions or who have endometriosis or PCOS may need a little extra love and support in the nutrition department.
Which is good. It's important. How about fruit?
So fruit's great. And I think, a lot of these diets say fruit's bad, it's sugar. Okay, fruit is a form of carbohydrate, but it also has a lot of fiber, a lot of vitamins and minerals. But this is our couple keynotes. I think fruit is best consumed fresh. You get the best bang for your buck when you have the fruit whole relative to juice or dried fruit, which is much more concentrated in sugars, and you get that blood sugar spike, which we want to avoid. The second key ingredient is, I do think, like other carbohydrates, and this is an important thing which we haven't mentioned, the order in which we eat our food is important. I do think it's important to prioritize protein first before you eat your carbohydrates. So if I'm saying that fruit is a carbohydrate, we shouldn't be eating fruit as a snack on an empty stomach. So having a scoop of peanut butter, a handful of nuts, that hard-boiled egg, that piece of cheese is really important to consume prior to eating that carbohydrate component in the form of fruit, in the form of, a slice of bread. So that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily know. But
and that's so clear. Why is that?
Well, so carbohydrates take a lot less time to go through your system, your GI tract. Where proteins and fats take a little bit longer time to go through your GI tract. If the carbohydrates are the first things that go in your system, your blood sugars will rise much faster. And again, what did I mentioned before? We want to make sure we have that slow, steady rise of that blood sugar. We want to keep that blood sugar level in this happy, healthy medium zone. We want it to stay there for a lot longer, and we want to catch it before it gets too low. So this is actually a good thing I didn't mention. The importance of not skipping meals, or another way of putting it, really trying to eat every 4 hours and not waiting until you're already hungry. Because once you've kind of had that feeling of, wow, I'm really ravenous, those blood sugars are already really low, and it's much harder to make better food choices then without getting that blood sugar spike. And so it's kind of that notion of being more proactive as opposed to being reactive.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, and that's, for me, my whole philosophy is progress, not perfection. And we've spoken about this before, is I do think it's important, there's a lot of information here, but it's trying to set up 2 to 3 small, realistic, achievable goals.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So for example, if you're not having breakfast, start off small. Okay, my first goal is I'm going to start with breakfast and come up with 1 or 2 breakfast ideas.
But pick something you like.
Yes, it would have to be something you like, or else part of also eating and digesting your food properly is having pleasure. Food should be pleasurable.
Now, let me ask you, what about dessert?
What about dessert?
Well, what do people do for dessert? I mean, they may not want fruit for dessert. They may want something, they want ice cream or cake or something.
I think that could be part of one's weekly routine. I think, like anything, it's making sure, it's kind of like treating yourself like a kid, making sure you get in your non-negotiables or the most important bare minimum. So making sure you get in that protein, making sure you get in your vegetables, making sure when you go for your complex carbohydrates, you go for the better quality carbs. And this is a great note. If you want to have dessert, try to make your whole grains or your beans the smallest part of your plate. So, because your desserts are typically going to also be a source of carbohydrates, and you don't want to tip the scale of too many carbohydrates relative to proteins, and your vegetables and your fats. So having dessert here and there is great, but also knowing the environment that you can eat it in a safe environment. So instead of keeping a pint of ice cream at home, if you know that maybe half a cup serving size is going to turn into a cup or 2 cups or the whole pint, going out and going for a walk and picking up a small scoop of a full fat ice cream, and then walk home. You're getting a little bit of exercise afterwards. And exercise actually can also help lower those blood sugars.
Right. And also you're getting calcium.
Exactly. Right. Or a piece of dark chocolate. There's a lot of antioxidant benefits from a square of dark chocolate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So this is all good. Oh my goodness. So much information.
A lot of information. And again, that's one component of wellness and really preparing you. And I think coupled with, the mind-body connection of really trying to get support if you're, mentally struggling is part of it. And I think in combination, the two of us, it's important.
I think it's important not to beat yourself up if you eat something you're not supposed to eat. I think that's really important because you know what? You ate it and it's okay. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you weren't eating out of stress. And then you just go back your next meal or your next bite to something that's healthy again. And that's what it's about. It's about just
the
balancing, because it's not necessarily easy to change your whole diet if you're changing it. And for some people, the thought of eating fish is horrible, or the thought of eating that many vegetables. So, you want to start to integrate these things into your life and not have them as a source of stress.
Yes.
But maybe as a source of something to be curious about.
Yeah, having a healthier relationship with food. I think part of it starts with changing what's going on in here, what your, the negative self-talk of, I can't believe I ate this, I'm bad.
Right.
And I think having that mentality of what would your best friend say? Your best friend wouldn't make you feel bad. They would say, okay, maybe not your finest moment, but guess what? You can't undo, but you can learn from that. Did you enjoy it? If you didn't enjoy it, next time you got to, enjoy it. You're eating it because it brings you pleasure.
Right.
And so I think it's changing that relationship of having that non-judgmental attitude towards yourself.
Yeah.
And then, afterwards reflecting and saying, why did I eat that? Did I eat that because it was something I really wanted to have? Or did I eat that because I didn't eat throughout the rest of the day, or I wanted to reward myself? But I do think any food can be part of your day-to-day if you're really trying to find that balance. And again, that's what getting, seeking support can really help you find that balance.
I think this is such great information because you really went over so much and really basic information that we all need to know. So we didn't get in depth because Dara could talk for an hour just about salmon. So I mean that out of pure love. So anyway, that's why I'm so glad that you're here. So, this is such great basic information for us to know. And really, I think your message of seek support, seek help if you need help with this is so clear. And most of the fertility clinics and most of your doctors will be able to recommend a nutritionist that will be available to you. Take advantage of it. It's really important. So Dara, anything else we should tell people about?
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, starting off small, making these small achievable goals. When in doubt, I think it's going for whole foods, the foods that our ancestors ate,
right.
Less of the packaged processed foods, and really trying to make small changes and then building upon that and being kind to yourself.
Yes.
And recognizing that these are some things that you can make changes on. It's within your reach.
Yeah. And the only thing I'd add to that is that as you start to eat whole grains and whole foods and real products and rich products, all of a sudden your tastes change and it becomes what you want and what you crave. So it's very interesting. You'll see a transition in your body or in your kind of desire for what you want to eat. If you're going to, create this change, or if you haven't had this kind of an eating habit in your life.
And it takes time and it takes patience and it, again, it takes kindness towards yourself that some moments or some days may be more challenging than others, but going back to basics of
Right.
the protein, are you getting in fiber? Are you getting in vegetables? Are you staying hydrated? And that's a great foundation
Yeah.
for your health.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
My
This is
pleasure.
wonderful. And it's good if you have a partner, for your partner to follow the same
Exactly.
guidelines. Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. And this is wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let me see if I can end this. I'm really bad with this.
You want to stop right over here.
Stop.